Okay, let's talk about one of my all-time favorite movies and why it's one of the most complex pieces of propaganda ever. Demolition Man is the 1993 action movie starring Sylvester Stallone in one of the best action cop performances of all time, I think. I'm not the most action cop guy ever, so there might be someone y'all like better, but for me, this one hits really well. Wesley Snipes is also in one of the best villain roles of all time. Sandra Bullock's there and a bunch of other people whose faces you'll recognize if you're over the age of 25, but whose names I just don't remember. It is what it is. Before I get to the deeper stuff of the movie, I gotta say, detached from the underlying politics, this is an outright classic. It's one of the best schlocky sci-fi action flicks ever, probably just below the first Matrix and maybe Equilibrium for me. This, again, probably something I'm forgetting about, but I watched this movie so much as a young adult and kid growing up. So if you're one of my Gen Z or younger viewers and you're into this sort of thing, I give it a very strong recommendation. The world building is spectacular. The camp and goofiness is spectacular. It's not John Wick level of action, but even watching it today, the action's still really good. And unlike most media from the 90s, there's not a lot of random homophobia or racism baked into the movie, which I think maybe is a product of the futuristic setting. I'm not quite sure. There is this random moment where Wesley Snipes' character starts doing a really offensive Asian accent for no apparent reason. But other than that, it's safe. It's safe. But that's not why we're here. We're here to analyze and overthink. So going forward, spoiler alert for this 30-year-old movie. To summarize things really quickly, we meet John Spartan in the post-apocalyptic reality of Los Angeles in 1996, which really was hilarious even then. Now, mind you, Los Angeles had just survived Rodney King's riot, so I guess this ridiculous apocalyptic image of it wasn't so outlandish, but things really needed to get bad really quick for this type of reality to be reasonable. And it is what it is. Stallone's character is named John Spartan, because of course it is, and he is the action cop at this point, in the present time in the movie. And that's because Stallone had been a action cop actor at this time in real life. He had become a staple of action movies, but also was low-key falling behind Schwarzenegger as the alpha dog in the genre, because the previous year Schwarzenegger had Terminator 2, and the year before that he had Total Recall, so he was pulling ahead of Stallone just because he was in these classics. Stallone had the 80s with Rambo and Rocky, but in the 90s, although he still had some good stuff, it just, it wasn't hitting the same. He did Stop or My Mom Will Shoot, and I think he did Rocky 5 before this, and Rocky 5, it's fucking awful.
I'll get it all back.
Snipes, on the other hand, is basically playing what if a YN was also the Joker, right? He's maniacal, menacing, scary, very flamboyant and outlandish, but he's having so much goddamn fun.
We're having a lot of quality time together. See you, sweetie. Honey, sugar.
You could tell Snipes was in the middle of an amazing run of flicks, was having a blast being this character, maybe doing a little bit too much. Again, he may have, I don't know if I can repeat what he says, because I'm not even gonna play that clip. I'm gonna let his weird racist Asian accent just not be a part of my video. Once again, the movie opens in 1996, but after our inciting incident, both of these characters find themselves sent to prison, and we enter into the film's major plot device, the cryo-sleep prison system, where instead of locking criminals up in cages, they are frozen in cryo-sleep, where they are allegedly rehabilitated over time through subconscious hypnosis that they have while they're asleep, which is really awful, but arguably just as bad as what's happening in the prisons now anyway, so I don't know. You decide. And then we fast forward 30 years to 2036, and LA and possibly society as a whole is now under an authoritarian neoliberal dystopia, somewhere between what I imagine Brave New World would be and Minority Report. Everything is perfect and bright and clean, but you can tell it's come at the cost of a normal range of human emotion and personal freedom.
Has been code fixed. Approaching the corner of Will.
But we'll come back to that. Snipes' character, Simon Phoenix, is paroled, aka thawed out, and immediately escapes, and somehow has come back not just as the wild warlord he was in 1996, but he knows the codes to his own restraints. He's a computer hacker. He knows karate and speaks multiple languages. So something fishy is happening already. And then we start seeing the interesting angle on Copaganda. Well, it's not interesting, it's pretty obvious, but it ends up being interesting on accident. Because the police in the society that are trying to catch him are basically what we wish the police were now in the low crime socialist utopia that we're working towards with the help of George Soros. They don't carry guns. They're not prone to violence. They're well educated and well paid and well taken care of. And of course, the movie wants us to see that this is all bad, which in the context of the movie, yeah, it's bad because it means they can't catch this time frozen maniac that knows karate. But in general, not quite seeing the problem here. Simon Phoenix runs through these cops like foot soldiers because they aren't strong and violent enough to know how to deal with a real criminal. So what do? They thaw out Spartan and they find a real man to help them do what they're too unmanly to do themselves. And after Spartan gets thawed out, we learn more about the flaws of this society. And to give the movie credit, though it's conservative inclined, it does make some useful and insightful critiques about neoliberal fascism and how it works. Sandra Bullock's character with the very on-the-nose name of Huxley, as in Aldous Huxley. I heard we're not supposed to like Aldous Huxley over here. I'm not sure why. I guess I have to look it up, but I'll die on the hill that Brave New World is the most likely dystopia that we are ever going to see in not in our lifetime, but just in the future. It's literally where we're headed to right now. And the movie seems to agree, and Huxley breaks it all down in the movie. It's made clear that corporations really run everything, hence all restaurants, even fine dining restaurants, are Taco Bell, because Taco Bell was allowed to consolidate all the food industry under its name.
Now all restaurants are Pizza Hut.
No way.
In this world, all civil liberties are subject to administration from the state. There's no guns, violence is looked down upon, nobody gets to curse. It's akin to like, here's the future the liberals want memes. It's basically that, except probably worse. The movie attempts to present itself as centrist, which not really, but the fact that it thinks it's centrist does allow it to also throw in some shots at conservatives, because in this world, abortion is illegal, but so is getting pregnant if you don't have a license, and actual like physical sex is, I guess, not technically illegal, but severely frowned upon unless you're doing simulated sex through mind meld, which is hilarious to watch in the movie and scary to think about in real life, because it's, again, this shit is definitely coming. Furthermore, all music and media that is in any way capable to upset the status quo is forbidden, as is cursing. In fact, if you curse, you get a fine.
Thanks a lot, you shit.
So pick whichever political side you want as the fault of this particular future. And by political side, I mean Democrats and Republicans. You'll see. And I don't think that was their goal. I think they were only trying to make fun of, the liberal society. It wasn't woke back then because, white people are unoriginal. But in doing so, I think it does give a relatively interesting and realistic dystopia, because it shows the type of dystopia that neoliberal fascism is likely to produce. All fascism, especially the fascism that we're facing right now, is not gonna be black jack boots on the ground and Nazi aesthetics with death camps and whatnot. The type of fascism we're most likely headed toward is one where the 1%ers in the managerial class live in comfort, although probably with massive restriction, and the poor are literally left to rot. That's low-key what we're headed toward. And this brings us to the twist of sorts in the story. It turns out that Snipes' Phoenix character is not the only villain. There's a man behind the curtain, a Dr. Cocktail, the same man who actually froze Stallone way back in 1996, and he is elevated to the omnipotent administrator in this future and is greatly behind the current design of things. Except he has one problem. There's a revolution afoot. There's a guy named Edward Friendly, played by Chris Leary, and he is gaining steam as a leader of a grassroots resistance group that's living underground that society calls the Scraps. But they're low-key anarchists who chose to live underground than to live under the boot of modern society. So, there's some good stuff there, right? Wait till you see it. Being the authoritarian he is, it turns out that Cocktail used his powers and connections to de-thaw Phoenix early and ensure that he would be as dangerous as possible once he's thawed out. He is the reason why Phoenix is speaking languages, hacking computers, and doing karate. But in a profound symbolism of black misleadership as it exists today, he ensured that Phoenix would not ever be able to do harm to him personally. Simon Phoenix has a literal coon chip in his brain that won't let him kill his master. And like, I don't know if you can get better as a metaphor than that. Like, I know that was probably on accident. Like, this is a rare movie where a black man is like a main villain in an action film, but they don't really engage with him being black a ton. This could have been played by Jim Carrey for all we know. But it's still genius. It's accidental, but it's genius. The goal is for Phoenix to kill friendlies because obviously the police can't do it for him in this society where they finally have defunded the police. But it's interesting that they didn't thaw out Spartan first. Well, not interesting. I see what they're trying to do. In the movie, of course, Spartan is like a hero and he fights for the underserved and injustice. But in real life, a guy like Spartan would have loved to have come back and went into the sewers and beat up, brutalized, and killed a bunch of anarchists. Like, come on now. In the movie, Spartan's happy to bust heads when he realizes that Edward Friendly's community are just stealing food to survive. He gets mad at the powers that be because the violence that he's committing against them isn't righteous anymore in his mind. He starts conflicting with Cocktail about the order of things, and the movie tries to frame it as the overbearing, anti-fun, and masculine liberal wanting to subdue the alpha male, strong, everyman energy, but it's really an argument over whose fascism is better, the neoliberal authoritarian or the strongman Western chauvinist. Yeah, basically. But the movie does have a lot of nuggets of insight like that, accidental but insightful. Because of whatever reason, Spartan makes his way to the underworld with the scraps, and finally he's at home because even though it's dirty, the scraps have real freedom and grit and the American spirit of survival. He even buys a burger from a Mexican woman that's made of rat meat and praises its flavor. He speaks Spanish, so you know this shit is realistic for police of today's time. And then we finally get to meet the leader of the anarchist revolution, and
according to Cocteau's plan, I'm the enemy, because I like to think. I like to read. I'm into freedom of speech and freedom of choice.
I'm the kind of guy who likes to sit in a greasy spoon and wonder, gee, should I have the T-bone steak or the jumbo rack of barbecue ribs with the side order gravy? More high cholesterol. I want bacon and butter and buckets of cheese, okay? I want to smoke Cubans around the size of Cincinnati and the
fuck, he's a debate bro. Yeah, while the scraps and Edgar Friendly have all the aesthetics of how, you know, some images of grassroots revolution like to imagine they'll be in the underground or whatever, but when he opens his mouth, he's less Kropotkin and more Joe Rogan. And Dennis Leary himself definitely is like an edgy bro icon from the 90s, so it makes sense that in my head right now, he just sounds like a debate bro. It's not that his talk of freedom isn't nice and all, it's that it's aimless and not really centered on any type of liberatory ethos. And just to be clear, before Andrewism sends me an angry DM, this isn't actual anarchism. This is more likely what liberals and conservatives imagine anarchism must look like on its best day. Anarchism is one of the most misinterpreted ideologies in our media. I know this because I've had to unlearn a lot about it recently. Check out Anarchism, Anarch, Anansi's Library. I don't know why all their names start with an A, but check them out if you actually want to learn about that philosophy. Still, it is something that the cop has to join the anarchist rebellion in order to save the day. I also love how Phoenix figures out how to circumvent his chip and kill his master.
San Angeles will be a beacon of order with the purity of an ant colony.
An evil Mr. Rogers. Will you please kill him? It's pissing me off.
Spartan kills Phoenix. It's actually one of the most glorious villain deaths in cinema history, in my opinion. I can't show it to you on YouTube and I don't want to spoil it, but I'll just point out that it's a great callback in the movie. Just good stuff. And at the end of the day, Spartan seemingly leaves the police force, which is good, but not before offering the suggestion that the current neoliberal establishment needs to find a common underground with the anarchist revolution led by Joe Rogan, which is bad. And while this could be interpreted as somewhat a win for progressive stances, it really isn't, because the thing that was made clear throughout the movie is that it takes a strong, resolute, conservative man like a John Spartan to come in and do what needs to be done to make things right. Like, the movie is basically the strong man make good times, strong men make bad. I don't know what the meme is, but you know that stupid ass fucking meme that you'll see in red pill groups. It's that actually. It manages to provide some interesting commentary and even some on purpose stuff, but overall it's what these movies always tend to be. Okay, as a bonus, for those of you who made it to the end and care and aren't gonna be watching the movie anytime soon, Here's that death scene I was talking about, including the context for it. That is, if you're watching this on Nebula. For the rest of you watching on YouTube, let's talk about today's sponsor, Nebula. This is the type of stuff Nebula was made for, at least initially. Like, many people know that we are the independent streaming service made by creators like me so that we can make the type of content that we really want to make away from the restrictions of YouTube and its draconian rules around copyright and monetization. For example, a little while before this video comes out, I will have posted a video on my main channel called Black Cops Won't Save Us, which is a critique of the images of Black people as police officers in the media and how that extrapolates to the politics of Black people and policing in real life. The Nebula version of that video is the original vision I had for the video. And the YouTube version has numerous moments of censorship, different things that have to be done to images for the purpose of avoiding copyright bots, changes in music choices, and more, just to make sure it's functional on YouTube and that it can make me the money I needed to make. And to be honest, this was actually light compared to some things I've had to do in the past. Also, as an added bonus, Nebula viewers got to see that video days earlier than it came out on YouTube because I didn't have to wait for various levels of approval before posting it. But that's kind of like version 1 Nebula. The reality is Nebula is evolving into its own independent media studio where we are now funding and producing genuine original works of cinema and media such as Jesse Gender's Identitize or Patrick Williams' Night of the Coconut, with even more stuff like that in production, as well as higher level documentary work or even reality TV shows such as The Getaway or real life lore series on the history of conflicts in the Middle East. I and other creators are all planning major projects that can only exist on Nebula as we venture into this new realm of independent creation, but this is only possible because of the way you all support us. Nebula is not owned by Google or any other major corporation. We don't use AI or algorithms or machine learning models to funnel users into one box or another. Nebula is made and ran by small independent creators for small and independent creators. And you can help us continue to do what we're doing by signing up using my link signified B-Sides to get 40% off a Nebula subscription. In doing so, you'll get access to everything Nebula has, which also includes, I didn't mention, a ton of original content that's already there. So please sign up, support independent creators, support my channel in particular, and enjoy what you get out of the process. Thank you so much to Nebula for sponsoring the video. I'm FD Signifier, and this has been Light Work.